right, hello fam. Sorry I'm a little bit late. Looking forward to tonight's stream. It is going to be a short stream. The last few weeks, as I've gone back and listened to the stream, I think I've learned a lot. Number one, the keeping the streams under an hour is a great idea. I really didn't care for the longer format when we ran over a couple of times. But tonight is going to be a much quicker stream. Originally, I had planned to do the 7:30 start time, and I realized that our No Permissions Patreon group meets on Thursday evenings at 7 o'clock. So as a rule, from now on, our regular weekly streams, at least for the next probably 2 or 3 weeks, will be Thursdays at 8 o'clock. After probably the 19th or 20th of this month, my schedule lightens up a little bit, and I plan to add a couple of other days of streaming. I'm also going to start doing streams basically with anybody, anytime that they can stream with me on the meme coin side, talking about different meme coins and different projects on Pulse Chain. Oops, I forgot to fix my beard. I don't want to cover up the beard. I'm pretty proud of that. So anyway, tonight's stream is obviously dedicated to what's going on the East Coast. I know that a lot of people don't believe that weather modification is a real thing. I really do disagree. And tonight we're going to watch a couple of videos, just short little videos about weather modification, some dealing with exactly what is going on the East Coast, or has been going on these last few weeks, I guess. About a week, starting about a week ago with the weather. And it has been crazy. I know that, if you've seen the news reports, one of the things that I can say that I've really been shocked at, even knowing how criminal the federal government is seems like there's a complete lack of response. I was looking at in fact, I've got a news article right here. Let's see if I can pull it up. Let's see. News article about this guy that was using his own helicopter, risking his own life to save people that were stranded in the aftermath of the hurricane. So I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, what is going on? And it's one thing, I can understand that the federal government would try to do everything to squelch it. What I don't understand is that it would be, that the local leadership, local law enforcement would comply with the federal government. At some point, somebody has to stand up to the federal government when they issue ridiculous orders. And so let me see if I can pull this article up. Yeah, there we go. So if I can get rid of this ad, there we go. Helicopter pilot threatened with arrest after flying rescue missions in ravaged North Carolina. South Carolina pilot who flew stranded Hurricane Helene victims in flood-ravaged North Carolina to safety claims he was told that he would be arrested if he continued the rescue missions. Jordan Sondheim was flying victims out of the devastation over the weekend when local leaders told him there were flight restrictions on the area and that they would have to arrest him if he continued making flights. There were other victims. He's quoted as saying, as we were flying out, leaving the area, we spotted within 300, 400 yards of their location, people were waving for help as my son and I were leaving. Bro, I don't know what to say to people who still trust our government. You would think that any government official, whether they be local, whether they be national, would welcome help of any kind. Obviously, if the guy has a helicopter, he's a trained pilot, he's willing to take the risk to help people. Uh, I have no idea why, other than these people are, you know, uh, uh, malevolent in the way that they run the government. I've been saying it for a long time. I believe that the federal government is, or the government in general, governments across the world in general, in Western countries, are at war with their citizens, from the way that they handle the healthcare, from the way that they handle the economy, and we'll get to how they weaponize the economy in a minute. One of the things that I'm going to do on when I'm just streaming by myself is have kind of dedicated segments. Like tonight, we're going to talk about the matters at hand, and then we're going to have a little preview of our Bitcoin for Beginners segment. Uh, one of the things we're going to talk about tonight in that segment is just kind of the philosophy behind Bitcoin and what started Bitcoin. And man, it goes right in with what's going on in the Carolinas and in the weather ravaged areas on the East Coast. Whether it's weaponizing the economy against us or weaponizing storms against us, it 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 doesn't matter. It seems like everything that the federal government does is to wreak havoc on its citizens. So let's get on. Let's talk about uh, some weather modification. So as it pertains specifically to this storm, let me share my screen here. There's a guy named, let's see, what is his name? His name is Dane Wigington. Dane Wigington. And he tracks a lot of the microwave stations around the United States, and his channel is dedicated to bringing to light all of the crimes committed by the governments with regard to their geoengineering. One of the things that I remember reading about, it's been decades, reading about how during the Vietnam War, the United States Army, they ceded parts of the jungle where they knew that the North Vietnamese were hiding out, or where they had supply lines and things like that, and they literally made it rain for weeks, if not months at a time. I mean, this is well documented. The government admits it, and has for decades now. And so it really strikes me as a little bit crazy when normies, and I say that in a nice way, but when people who don't that still follow the mainstream narrative, that they question whether weather modification exists. It obviously exists, and if they could do that, if they could make it rain for weeks at a time in Vietnam in the 1960s, you can't tell me that they don't, that they haven't advanced, and they're not willing to use those geoengineering, what I'll call weapons, although they could use them for good. I mean, think about, man, every time you've heard of a forest fire over the last 30 years, why did that even have to happen? Even the way they manage the parks and the areas that have real thick undergrowth, how they don't clear those out regularly. Even with all that, with the technology that we have with cloud seeding, I mean, there are literally, there's records of, there's several of these cloud seeding companies, and you can find contracts online of countries in Africa that do business with these weather seeding companies. That's even privatized. That's gone beyond military use. So we know we can do it. Why in the world is there ever a situation where we have prolonged, forest fires that destroy people's homes and destroy entire communities? We know how to use the weather uh, and manipulate the weather. The thing is, the government doesn't want to do it to help us. They only want to do it to hurt us. So let's pull up this guy's video, and I will share the screen. Sorry, this takes a minute. I'm still learning how to uh, manage all the software related to streaming. And I'm by myself, so I don't have a producer. Here we go.
Path and behavior just the result of natural processes and climate patterns, or was it manipulated? The circular blue flashes seen in this video are frequency transmissions from the NexRad network of transmitter installations. All available science evidence makes clear that atmospheric frequency transmissions can and do have a repelling effect on air masses, especially if and when the air masses have been seeded with electrically conductive nanoparticles. The brighter the blue flash from a frequency transmission installation, the more pronounced and powerful the repelling effect on any air mass or storm in the vicinity will be. Where there are no blue flashes, there is no transmission, thus no repelling effect, thus no resistance for a migrating storm. Translation: a migrating storm will be hindered from moving toward frequency transmissions and will easily migrate in a direction with no transmissions. So again, I ask, was Hurricane Helene's path and behavior just an act of nature, or was it engineered? You decide.
All right, and that guy's got a great channel on YouTube. You can go there and watch this documentary called The Dimming that talks all about cloud seeding and about chemtrails and so forth. Geoengineeringwatch.org is his website. So take that for what it's worth. I certainly believe that we in our country, the government, the military, even private companies have access to this kind of technology. Next thing I want to show you is this same guy did a quick interview, or I'm going to show you a quick clip from an interview that he did with another freedom streamer. Let me get this started right. Now, this is Peggy Hall from the Healthy American, and I came to find her. Oh, I'm pretty sure it was during the pandemic. She was a big freedom fighter during the pandemic. She did a lot of streams and put out a lot of content regarding how to protect yourself against the vaccine mandates, how to keep from getting fired for not wearing a mask, lots of legal streams during that time. So this is Peggy Hall interviewing the guy who Dane Wigginton, the guy who keeps this website,
and the damage and devastation in North Carolina and beyond. So welcome back.
Thank you, Peggy. Thank you for your continued attention toward what's happening in our skies. And our goal at Geoengineering Watch is to try to drive the point home that the threat posed by what's occurring in our skies is far more grave and far more immediate than almost any yet understand. And what we hope people begin to understand too, Peggy, is this, that it's interesting that they're from all sides of the orchestrated political divide, people are waving their banners for different sides of the same coin of power structure that's doing what they're doing in our skies, that's neck deep and always has been with manipulating conflicts around the globe. It's the same core. It's the people who print the money. That's all roads lead back to those who control the money. They control militaries, thus they control countries. And
man, isn't that interesting? This guy, he has spent his whole life, or his recent life, delving into this so-called conspiracy, documenting all this geoengineering, how it's harmful, how the governments are connected. And he even understands that things are being run by people that control the money. that seems to be the controlling factor in almost everything that goes on. That these, whatever you want to call them, Peggy Hall calls them the New World Disorder, and so even this guy understands. And again, we'll tie all that together when we get to the second part of our content tonight, which has to do with why Bitcoin came about.
Again, people need to sort that out and understand that that's ultimately who is behind climate engineering, because people sometimes point the finger at Bill Gates, for example, or some other individual. These programs were going on before those people were ever even born. So yes, they're diabolical people, but they're certainly not anywhere near the top of this power pyramid. So, and the stakes right now, Peggy, could not be higher. We're seeing ecosystems implode around the globe, fisheries, insects, crops, wildlife. We're perilously close to empty food shelves here in the US as well.
Well, when we first came on, Dane, you were telling me that your internet is unstable. Yesterday, I couldn't get on my phone, and you're in Northern California, and you're saying.
All right, so again, just another example of people in the know that there's all kinds of information out there, and I'll be honest, I would not doubt that if some point in the future this guy's site winds up getting taken down as more and more people figure out what's going on. One of the tragic things that I read somebody's comment. I want to say it was on Twitter. It might have been on Facebook. I hang out on Facebook. I know it's kind of like saying saying I have a MySpace still, but I hang out on Facebook still some. So it might have been on Facebook, but it was somebody who was in the area that was talking about near Asheville, and they lived just outside of town of Asheville, but they worked in Asheville, and they said that either this morning or maybe yesterday was the first time that they had made the trip into their business since the storm. And that she at first could not believe, number one, that there seemed to be no federal government, presence, it seemed like there was nobody on the roads, actively looking for survivors, or she said there were bodies strewn, that there was nobody collecting bodies or doing anything, that these bodies had just washed up, as the waters receded in various places that were visible to her from the roadway. I find all this, so difficult to believe that this is going on in a first world country, that my daughter's in the military, and she hasn't heard anything about troops being deployed. I know somebody made a post that the Tennessee National Guard was deployed overseas currently, but that there are plenty of other neighboring states or states in the area that could certainly be mobilized, and apparently there's very little evidence of any of this happening. So the next thing I'm going to show you guys has to do with geoengineering in general. And I just stumbled across this, and this will be kind of the last thing that we talk about with respect to weather as warfare topic. Again, to me, it's pretty self-evident when you look up at the chemtrails, when you look at the laws that have been passed that allow this kind of behavior by the so-called federal government. Again, we, in a sense, the way the legal system, the way the laws work in our world is that there's this term called acquiescence. So the government tells you what they're going to do to you, just like the vaccine. Anybody who would ask for the vaccine insert, you could get the vaccine insert that described exactly what was in the vaccine, right? But nobody asked. They just believed the propaganda around it. Well, the same is true of laws around chemtrails and around geoengineering. There are laws that are passed and the government tells you, hey, we're going to spray your skies with barium, with aluminum, with all these, with mercury, with all these heavy metals. And this happens, these type of laws, they're injected or into huge spending bills or other laws where there's just a byline or a paragraph or whatever that gives a federal agency, a three-letter agency, the ability to do X, Y, and Z, right? All this is published in the congressional record. And the way our legal system works is that if we don't say, wait a minute, if we don't object to it, then by acquiescence, by an act of acquiescence, we are consenting to it. And that's the way things work in the courts. And we'll talk more about that next time we do a stream about the legal system. So what they're doing is legal, but it's not moral, right? And the more we can wake people up, number one, from the pilots in the military and private pilots that fly these missions, the more we can wake them up, the more we can find genuine people that care about what's going on, that will be able to stand up and not consent to do this kind of stuff. And that's what it's going to take. It's going to take people on the front line. We're never going to change the system, or, we're not going to vote people in that are going to take care of this issue. They're just not going to do it. The people making these decisions are far above the actors that we see in Washington. So let's find, this is a Rumble stream, and I was really kind of shocked when I came across this post. I mean, it just was very serendipitous when I was doing my prep this afternoon. I thought, man, I have got to show this this video or a portion of it.
There's the old way, and then there's the smart way. Connect anything and everything. There's the old way, and then there's the smart way. Connect anything and everything.
We have had the technology to create, control, and steer hurricanes for decades. Project Cirrus is the first official attempt to modify a hurricane. It was run by General Electric with the support of the U.S. military. The official theory was that by changing the temperature outside the eye wall of a hurricane, which they did by seeding the clouds with various compounds such as silver iodide, a decrease in strong winds will result. On October 13th, 1947, Project Cirrus targeted a hurricane heading out to sea. Approximately 180 pounds of dry ice was dropped into the clouds. The crew then reported a pronounced modification of the cloud deck, and the hurricane abruptly changed direction and made landfall near Savannah, Georgia. The public blamed the government. Irving Langmuir, who pioneered General Electric's atmospheric research department and admitted that the project was about learning how to weaponize the weather, also claimed the reversal of the hurricane had been caused by Project Cirrus. But the government...
Wow, guys, that's 1947, and they're doing this kind of stuff. That's crazy. When I saw this afternoon, it was hard for me to believe, because again, I had always been told that the genesis of all this cloud seeding and weather manipulation was the late 50s, early 60s. Again, because by the time we were deep into the Vietnam War, in the late 60s and 70s, we were using this technology as warfare. All right, let's keep going.
Government denied it for 12 years. After a short delay, the project officially continued.
And doesn't that seem to be a pattern? Anybody, guys, I really thought being a truther, a conspiracy theorist, whatever you want to call me, for decades. I can remember hearing about stuff like this. Again, this pattern that the government says they're not involved or doing anything nefarious. And then a period of time goes by, this, the span of a generation, basically. And then they come out and admit it. And the people in that time still, when a new event happens, they never question the government, even though the government has admitted to all kinds of things like this. I mean, look at what is the Tuskegee experiment? When they injected people with, I think it was syphilis. I mean, man, and people still trust the government. It's obscene to me that anybody that's been around for their mid-30s on has any trust in the government at all.
And in 1965, Project Storm Fury had targeted Hurricane Betsy for seeding. On that day, the storm immediately changed direction and made landfall in southern Florida. Congress blamed it on Project Storm Fury, but the government claimed that the hurricane shifted before they ever had a chance to seed it. And after 2 months of congressional hearings, the project was allowed to continue.
There you go. There's another one. Wow. Just lying to the American people. And anytime you hear a congressional hearing, you're just watching a TV show. That's all it is. All these things are scripted. They're never going to hold anybody truly accountable. Every now and again, somebody will be held accountable, but generally it's a sacrificial lamb. It's somebody that they want out of their club anyway, that they're skeptical is loyal and so forth. And so either they create something to hold them accountable for, and, for a small period of time, it looks like the government's doing something genuine. All for show, though.
Continue. In 1997, U.S. Defense Secretary William Cohen admitted we have the technology to control the weather, including earthquakes and volcanoes. The U.S. government has placed gag orders on employees of the National Weather Service. In October of 2012, after Hurricane Sandy weakened to a tropical storm, microwave imagery shows a thick red beam immediately followed by Sandy growing into a Category 1 hurricane and taking an unexplained left turn into New Jersey. The push towards alternative energy demands more lithium, and according to the U.S. Geological Survey, the United States has over 6 million tons of identified lithium.
Hey guys, now this is going to get deep down the rabbit hole, because one of the things that I've been seeing and hearing in the conspiracy world is that I think it's in North Carolina, and I think that it was mistakenly said that it was Asheville, that there are lithium mines in Asheville, and apparently they may not be in Asheville, but they're in the state. There are lithium mines on the East Coast, and so a lot of people in the truther community have said, well, this is one of the reasons. They want to just move everybody. Because they can relocate once there's a big event like this and people's homes are literally destroyed. And when they relocate them where they want them and where they have access to, rape the land. And I think it's interesting because I think a lot of people thought, that the lithium was for perhaps electric car batteries, things like that. But now we're seeing in this expose that they use them in weather modification. Wow, that's pretty deep.
Lithium resources. The majority of this lithium has been identified in Kings Mountain, North Carolina. Kings Mountain is believed to have one of the largest resources in the world, but the biggest problem is that people live there and they don't want their quiet towns turned into lithium mines.
People in Cherville have been pushing against a proposed lithium mine for the last several years, but everyone we spoke with here said it's too divisive.
Guys, do you see what's going on here? Tell me this isn't important. Tell me that they didn't geoengineer this storm to get their grubby paws on these natural resources. These people are evil. They do not care about you, about us as men and women. This is insanity. This is insanity. All right, just a couple more minutes of this
An
one, then we got to
issue
move on.
to share their opinion on camera. Cherryville is a small, quiet town.
I think that's good that we keep it small.
So quiet, many don't feel comfortable speaking out against Piedmont Lithium's proposed mining operation nearby.
I think we're a silent majority. I think a lot of people are afraid to say anything about it because they are bringing a lot to the town as far as money.
Last year, the Department of Defense entered a $90 million agreement with Albemarle Corporation to increase domestic production of lithium for the nation's battery supply chain, specifically from Kings Mountain, North Carolina, starting by 2025. This is the same area experiencing what is being described as biblical floods. While the federal government spends billions on foreign wars and illegal immigrants, they simply cannot be bothered with the health and well-being.
Yeah, that's another thing. Did y'all hear the paltry amount of money that the government, the federal government, is giving to victims of this so-called storm? It's like $750 per family. What that's like maybe a week's worth of groceries for a family of four, maybe. And besides that, these people can't get groceries. There are people stranded all over the path of this storm that have no access to electricity, no access to communication, no access to food, no access to water. It's insanity, man. It's insanity. These are the people who pretend to govern you, who really just rule over you. And bro, it's heartbreaking. It really is, because when you look at the rest of mainstream, they just seem to be going on. I mean, look at us, even us. We're going on with our lives. I mean, I'm here talking about crypto. We that care about each other in our communities have got to start standing up to the local governments, to the local, because I still believe that there are some people on the local level that are maybe untainted by this new world order. Now, I know there are people at the local level, but I think they're there to steer things. I think there are a lot of people at the local level that would do the right thing if they truly understood what's going on. Same thing with police officers. I believe there's enough good police officers that, if they try to lock us down again or enforce some kind of vaccine mandate, that there are enough good people on the local level that they won't comply. I think that's why the UN has the agenda they have. I think that's why the New World Order has the agenda that they have, because they know that on the local level, people are still going to watch out for each other. So with that, we will venture into our next segment, which is all about crypto. All right, so one of the things that I want the channel to do is to help onboard new people, no coiners. And in order to do that, I've set up, I've been helping people really for a couple of years onboard into crypto. And, but it's been people I come across. I've never done any kind of marketing or set up a website. It's just people I come across in my daily walk or family or whatever that know that I'm into crypto, and I help them get in. But I wanted to formalize things, number one, because of some of the meme coin projects that I have, the community that I'm in, or the communities that I'm in, man, they're just popping, and with new projects. The problem is, like, I'll use the No Permissions group as an example. When I got in and started listening to Randy Hilarski, and got in with the No Permissions group, and he started that. Man, we were all, I would say, kind of beginner to intermediate level in crypto, or at least that's what it felt like to me. We were kind of learning a lot of DeFi platforms on the go. And so now, those communities are kind of established, and people coming in, brand new people to crypto, they're kind of at a loss for what's really going on, because the things we talk about, whether we're talking about yield farming or liquidity providing, things like that, those are kind of intermediate to advanced skills. So I wanted to provide a safe haven for new no-coiners, for people that are brand new to crypto, to come and be onboarded and be able to take one-on-one time with them. So that's kind of one of the goals of the platform. And I just got the website up just a little bit ago, and you can go on the website. If you are, in fact, I do all of my consultations that I do with people are all on a donation basis. What I tell people that I work with is now what I tell the in real life people that I work with is, hey, when we get to the top of the bull run, you can thank me, appropriately. So I don't have a set fee, but I do expect my time to be respected, when I'm working with people that I don't even know. But I've got the website up with a link that people can click on. Just a general basic explanation about crypto. And on my website, it says Bitcoin for beginners. Now, I don't onboard people into Bitcoin because, again, if you're not new to crypto, then you know that while Bitcoin is the OG, it's also, it performs in the markets kind of like MySpace, right? It's slow and clunky to use on a technological level. In terms of the gains that it provides for those of us that are investing in it or speculating on it, they've become rather limited. And a lot of that is because, governments have started to move in, the ETFs have started to take over, and they can manipulate those markets through ETFs in any number of ways with the large bags that they hold. That's another conspiracy, right? The entire time that BlackRock representatives were on Capitol Hill telling Congress that they should ban Bitcoin, we now know that they were filling their bags with Bitcoin, right, in preparation for the ETF. So along with that theme, that what we want to do is provide education for no coiners. I titled that part of my website Bitcoin for Beginners because I think that's what most people know. I mean, even the people that are in my real life that know I'm into crypto, a lot of times they'll refer it to as that Bitcoin thingy. How's your Bitcoin doing? Not how are your crypto bags? How's your pulse chain? How's your hex? All the things I talk to them about, but they say, how's that Bitcoin thing you do? Or how's your Bitcoin? How's the world of Bitcoin? Right. So Bitcoin for beginners, if you're brand new to crypto, Bitcoin may be the only thing you've heard. And Bitcoin is the OG. And I want to talk a little bit tonight about why Bitcoin came about. Bitcoin was kind of a revolution. And again, kind of along with the conspiracy thing, this is something the government has been doing since at least 1913, really for the entire time. I mean, even in the, if you believe the mainstream narrative about the U.S. history, as early as the late 1700s, early 1800s, there were politicians, there were people in the United States that were lobbying politicians to allow a central bank. And there were people that fought it the entire century of the 1800s, right? During the 19th century, they just couldn't get it done. And then finally, in the latter part of that century, in the early part of the 20th century, specifically, I think around the mid-teens, maybe 1913, they got it to where Congress allowed a central bank in the country. And so most definitely since then, they have been manipulating the economy in a nefarious way. And I know in the mainstream narrative, just like, man, when I was growing up in the 70s, high school economics, you learned what inflation was. And you learned that it only came about, to the degree that we started experiencing after the gold standard, after we went off the gold standard. And then it became very rampant. And everybody understood that the main reason, the number one main reason that inflation happens is because of increase in the M2 money supply, right? The amount of money that's available to the general public in savings accounts, checking accounts, and things like that, that's being circulated, the circulation supply. Now, when we hit 2020 and the scamdemic happened, when I talk to in real life people that are, say, under the age of 40, most certainly under the age of 35, these people have no clue where inflation comes from. They believe this mainstream narrative that it's being caused by price gouging private companies, by the oil companies, right? I mean, man, they believe the government's numbers about inflation, so forth and so on. It's insane to me. So in the early 2000s and culminating in 2008, we had the real estate crisis, the housing crisis, right? And in all of the turmoil that was caused during that time, and again, I know you guys that are probably in the chat, you probably know this, but I'm hoping some no coiners see this. We came into a very similar circumstance that we had in the 70s, that we had in the 30s, in terms of the government manipulating the economy, right? And we saw inflation go through the roof. We saw it again in 2020. Well, after the 2008 incident, I think a lot of people caught on, right? And that's where Bitcoin came from. Bitcoin was an answer to the inflationary cycles that we experience with fiat. Bitcoin is supposed to be money for the people. Now, a lot has happened in the 15 years since, but that is the general ethos from which Bitcoin came into existence, right? Satoshi Nakamoto, either the single gentleman or the group of people known as Satoshi Nakamoto, created the code that we now know as the Bitcoin blockchain, right? And it allowed us to exchange value in a distributed ledger that was not under central bank control, with a set amount of inflation that could never be altered, right? So we know automatically that there's gonna ever be 21 million Bitcoin in existence, and that it cannot be inflated beyond that. And I want to show just a couple of clips that I found serendipitously that point out this idea that inflation, the only people that really control inflation, the only place inflation comes from is from the printing of money. And I think this video is probably from the 70s. It's Milton Friedman. For those of you that are economics students, you'll recognize that name. So like I always caution people, the clothing in the video is a little bit ancient, so to speak, so don't laugh. But this is Milton Friedman talking about where inflation comes from, and again, why we need Bitcoin, why we need crypto. that again, that myth is still being projected in mainstream economics, that inflation is caused by private industry. Absolutely ridiculous.
Due to an excessive
guys.
concentration of wealth in the hands of the wealthy at the expense of the poor in the 1920s, or it was due to speculative investment abroad, or what? But it was a failure of private business, and government had to step in order to rescue private business from its own failure.
Guys, does that sound familiar? There's a catastrophic economic event and the government has to step in. Again, it's just a replay of the 70s, just a replay of 2008, just a replay of 2020 when they shut down the world. The government had to step in.
Nothing could be farther from the truth. The Great Depression was produced, in my opinion, and I may say this is not a random opinion. I will be glad to refer you to a several hundred-page book in which it is documented. I won't tell you who the author is. Mr. Eccles did that. It was produced, the Great Depression was produced by a failure of government, by a failure of monetary policy. It was produced by a failure of the Federal Reserve System to act in accordance with the intentions of those who established it. It was produced by a failure of the Federal Reserve System despite the presence of knowledge.
All right, so there's again, a prime example of society knew this. Society knew, even back then, that the federal government were the culprits of inflation, right? So let's watch another clip here. This will be our last clip for the evening, and we'll wrap up with some good news.
Responsibility had been assigned to government since the founding of this country. The Constitution of the United States. It gives Congress the power to coin money and set the value thereof. And it was in the management of this fundamental function of government that government failed and produced the Great Depression. We have learned from that failure. The Federal Reserve will not fail in the same way again. This time it will fail in a different way. This time it has been failing, not by...
See, now, in the Great Depression, if you listen to this whole clip and listen to this whole speech or read his book, what you find out is in the Great Depression, they actually constricted the money supply, right? But again, this guy's telling you way back then that this is the government's plan, this is what they're going to do, this is how they're going to screw the American people. And I think his points here at the end, as he comes to the close of this section, are very prevalent.
Producing a Great Depression, but by producing an inflation. Because just as you will hear the story that it was business that was responsible for the Depression, so you will today hear the story that it is labor and management that are responsible for inflation. It is the same kind of a myth. Inflation is made in one place and one place only, Washington, D.C.
One place and one place only. Again, they used to teach, and I know, again, when I got to college, same thing. We all knew who was responsible for inflation because it happens in one place and one place only.
And in Washington, D.C., the chief source, immediate source of inflation is a Greek temple on Constitution Avenue, which houses the Federal Reserve Board. An accomplice, and a major accomplice, of course, sits in the halls of Congress in Washington. They are a major accomplice because you tell them to be. The American people have been telling Congress for many years, spend more money on us, please. But they've been telling us, don't raise our taxes. Congress has been listening. It's been spending more money on you. But on the other hand, it's been very unwilling to raise taxes. As a result, it has imposed inflation as a tax. That's one tax that you don't have to vote for, but you have to pay.
All right, guys. So there you have it, straight from the horse's mouth, from the boss himself, right? We all knew in high school and in college who this guy was. And my point is this, that the government has been up to no good with monetary policy for decades and decades and decades. And it finally came to a head, and we were able to do something about it in 2008, 2009 with the invention of Bitcoin. And now I think that's why it's so important, because the world system, the people in charge who think they own you and me, they are changing the money. That's what's going on right now. They're changing the money. They're changing the money system, and it's going to become more restrictive for us. In crypto, we have the ability to escape the tyranny of the fiat system. And that's why I think it's so important that we reach out to the people we know, right? To all of the no coiners, that if they don't get involved in crypto now, I believe the government will funnel them into their CBDCs or their monetary controls. They're going to figure out how to use the blockchain to benefit their tyrannical ways. I mean, they just like they figured out how to use weather modification to advance their tyranny, to advance their control over the natural resources, to move people around to where they want them, right? To cull the herd even, all right? And they're going to use the blockchain in a similar fashion. It's those of us that are here now that have the opportunity to escape their system and to create enough wealth for ourselves, really, to buy our freedom. That's what we're talking about here. And that's why I think it's important that we onboard as many people as possible this cycle, because I think after this cycle, maybe the next cycle, that we'll see it much more difficult to use blockchain technology for our benefit. Just like we had a great run from the early 2000s until the mid-teens, maybe the 2020, of the internet providing us a source of freedom, right? There were few restrictions and little censorship. That's what allowed a lot of the conspiracy theories, such as that's what allowed flat Earth, how flat Earth grew and spread, right? Before all the censorship came into the internet. Well, at this point, we're that early in the blockchain. And if we can utilize the technology to create the resources that provide monetary and economic freedom for the people that we love, and for the people that make their way into crypto before the next, the end of this cycle, maybe the end of the next cycle, I think we can have a meaningful effect on how quickly the cabal or the New World Disorder, or whatever you want to call them, how quickly they're able to steer societies where they want them, into 15-minute cities and so forth. Into medical tyranny. So that's why I think it's real important that we onboard new blood into the blockchain. And I hope those of you that are new to crypto watching this, that you understand why blockchain came about, that it really is a way that is antithetical, a way to manage our resources, our economic resources, to exchange with one another in a way that avoids the manipulation put on us by the government fiat system. With that being said, let me say this, and I'll close with this. Our website is up now. If you're brand new to crypto and you would like your hand held or would like a consultation on how to get on the blockchain, how to use basic DeFi, you can sign up for a consultation on the website. I think in the description here on YouTube, there's a link you can sign up with. If you download the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac clock app, again, you can find that in the description as well, and use my referral code, the referral code BEARD. Then you get a complimentary consultation, no donation required. Great for you. The other way to do it is if you are a new member of the No Permissions group of Randy Hilarski's No Permissions Patreon. If you're a new member, that means, and by new member, I mean you came to the No Permissions Patreon membership on or after September 11th, 2024, then you can have a complimentary consultation with me, and we can go over any issues you have, whether it's setting up a wallet, learning how to bridge things over, how to use a decentralized exchange, or if it's even just getting started. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. But the link to do that is in the description, or you can hit the website and find the link from there. With that being said, we're going to sign off. We're getting really close to an hour long, and I want to keep everything under an hour. It's just like every week, our stream seems to go by so quick. You know, I just had a couple of topics to talk about tonight, and we went through them. You know, I thought weather modification would take maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and we'd be out of here in 30 to 35 minutes. So learning a lot about streaming. I'm glad you guys were here, and we will see you for the next couple of weeks. We're going to do Thursday nights again, and then after that, like I said, we're going to expand. I think we're going to do a Saturday morning stream, and we're going to do a Monday, maybe a Monday evening stream that is, we'll call that maybe Meme Coin Mondays or something. So thanks for joining me. Hope you enjoyed the show. Have a great crypto weekend.